Well, we are joined by Kristin and Alisha, our specialists when it comes to, well, all things, I don't know, that we should do better in our lives, I think.
Yeah.
You guys are authors of books and the Healing Group, therapists and social workers of the Healing Group.
That's
so tell
right.
me a little bit more about what we're talking about today.
So today we're going to talk about everyday bullies.
Okay.
A lot of kids go back to school and they're faced with bullies, but as adults we run into our own bullies.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult to know what to do, how to deal with everyday bullies.
Right.
So that's what we're going to talk about.
It's back to school time, and yes, we can talk to the kids about it, and like you say, this can work for adults as well, maybe in workplace situations and different things like that.
Yeah, we kind of came up with a list of a type of bully. So we kind of have a few, like the nosy neighbor or the nosy coworker who's kind of wanting to be in your business and doesn't really know when to quit asking about information. Or we have the imposer, the person who just calls you at all hours or opens your door and comes in without knocking, or opens your
you at 7
refrigerator.
a.m.
Yeah, yeah. Or we have the pouter, you know,
Right.
somebody who just, when they ask you to do something and you happen to say no, they give you a big sigh or a big, you know, or they'll start crying, something to get you to do what they want you to do. So we have some tips on how to deal with those.
So these
types
are all
of bullies.
things that you may not necessarily identify as bullies, but they essentially can play the same role.
That's right, yeah.
So how do you deal with something like that?
Well, the one thing they have in common is they're lacking boundaries.
Okay.
And so really it boils down to, regardless of if you're dealing with the imposer or who, is establishing healthy boundaries. And so a boundary can feel vague, but it's really just setting limitations, expectations, rules to make your relationships and circumstances functional.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that transfers, you know, anywhere you're going, from the workplace to home to school.
It does.
Yeah.
Right.
And so being kind of clear with someone like this, saying things like, I cannot talk to you now, I will talk to you at, or I'm not taking personal phone calls at work during this time, I will, you know, I'll do it here. And just being simple and direct, and then not backing off of that, you know, and holding to that is going to make your relationship with them better and set this boundary where they can stop.
And another important boundary is saying yes when you genuinely can say yes, and saying no when you can genuinely say no. And that's one of the hardest things, is we flip-flop those.
I think a lot of people have a hard time saying no. I think a lot of people will say yes, 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 even when it's really hard on them to say yes. They feel like they have to, but you say don't. Set some boundaries and say, hey, I can't do that right now, but I'd love to try to do that here, right?
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So and then our last category of bully is the abuser. And that bully is unfortunately real for a lot of people out there. And so in that case, there is no place for that in society.
And that's where you might need to seek out bigger help and greater support for intervention on that.
I know so many people get so concerned. It's such a problem. You know, when you send your kid off to school and you have so much trust and faith in the system, and then, you know, when they come home and say that they've been involved in something, you know, what can you tell your kids to make them so they're not a victim in these cases?
I think old school thought was just to turn away from the bully, ignore sticks and stones may break my bones.
Right.
And now they're helping kids, they're learning assertiveness training and how to set their own boundaries, how to seek out adults for help, and to not just take it.
Right, I like that, to speak out. I know there are a lot of campaigns out there, I know even on the local cartoon networks and different things that tell kids to seek help in these kind of cases.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
Kristin and Alisha, thanks so much for coming in as always. I know I butchered your titles earlier. You know, tell us your official titles.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
There we go.
Yeah, and I'm a life coach at the Healing Group.
All right, all right. If you'd like more information, we've got more at KUTV.com. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.